Let me start by introducing our guest today. Pierre Bedard immigrated to California from Quebec in 1964, attended UCSD, where he received a BA in 1979, and attended Santa Clara University, where he received an MBA in 69 and a JD in 2009. Pierre has lived in the Valley since 1981 and in Los Altos since 1998 and has a 40-year career in tech at Sun Microsystems, Adobe, and IBM. He was appointed to the Library Commission in March of 2019 and was recently appointed to the North County Library Authority and elected its president. He worked on a subcommittee with Julie Crane to synthesize library needs and requirements. Pierre credits public libraries with helping him learn English. Anthony Carnesecca is the assistant to the city administrator, has worked in local government for over 11 years at the city of San Jose, the city of Santa Clara, and currently in the city of Los Altos. During his time at Los Altos, Anthony has served as liaison for Los Altos businesses to guide them through city regulatory processes, uh, uh, has researched and analyzed administrative and operational policies, programs, and prospects, drafted agenda reports to present to City Council, and provided outreach to a number of external organizations on behalf of the city, including ours. We'll begin this morning with Pierre. Pierre, please take it away.
Hi, thank you very much. And we're going to do a quick presentation and I'm going to introduce, Anthony's going to bring up the slides here. In any case, we're going to talk about the Los Altos main library renovation, something that's just come before the City Council last week. And moving on, I've just got a few intros just to couch the library, and I think what is its proper context, at least how I see it in many ways. First off, the library's been around since 1914. It's probably one of our oldest functioning, and certainly ongoing public services that we've had in Los Altos. And there is a storied history that's written and ties it back to 1914, all the way to the opening of the current building in 1964. If we look at Los Altos in terms of the other libraries in the system, we have to remember our library, and actually libraries, we have both Woodland and the Los Altos Main, are just two branches of branches throughout the county. So what I wanted to do was just really go through when the last major remodel was, how we stacked up to all the other libraries. And as you can see, I think does this automate, or is this animated? Yeah, it is somewhat. If we look at the last major remodel, we're basically we're due for one. 1990 was the last time. In terms of space, I think you'll see that we're the seventh of the eighth in terms of square footage today. Circulation, I believe we are third in circulation in the county. And the only reason Saratoga beat us is because Campbell was shut down part of the year. And the same thing with the gate count. So we've been hitting well above our average, as they say, our weight, and really serving the community with both Woodland and the Los Altos Main. And this is sort of what we couch it at it. We have 825 people who visited daily, and year to year, our circulation has been up 39%. Anthony?
Yeah, I'm happy to take over. Hi, everybody. Anthony Carnesecca, assistant to the city manager for the city of Los Altos. Thank you, Pierre. I think before I get too deep into the process map, it was touched on lightly, but there was an ad hoc subcommittee of the Library Commission that focused on main library improvements and created the needs assessment analysis of previous needs assessments that were done and really laid the groundwork for us to get started in this process when it was handed over to staff to go out to an RFP. At which point we selected ABA as our consultant for the architectural redesign of the library and the improvements. And right now you can see the process map up on your screen, which tells you about the three different phases we're in. We are here. We are nearing the end of phase one, which was the design alternatives analysis. And then we're preparing to move into phase two, which is design documents, and phase three, which is construction documents. So if you imagine a lot of this work that's been done over phase one over the past 8 months has really been community facing to create the design alternatives and then present them to the community and adjust moving forward before we really get into the nitty gritty of design, which is the next phase. So a little bit on the outreach summary. Round one, we started off with a staff workshop. So there's a technical advisory committee that is comprised of city staff, county staff, and the design consultants. And we've been meeting regularly to talk about all of these different options that we have and the redesign as we move forward. And we kicked off our engagement with a staff workshop that was focused on getting feedback from all of the staff at the library. And you'll start to hear this trend a couple of times, but we did bring donuts. We brought all of the staff from the library together into a conference room, presented the needs assessments, had them rank priorities on what was important to them, what were the values, what were the trade-offs, what were the things when they heard certain ideas and concepts, that feedback. And then we followed that off by kicking it off the public portion with a library commission meeting in March. So in March, we did a library commission meeting, and then we did two open houses that were in the library. One was on a weekend and one was on a weekend evening, afternoon time frame. And those three meetings were really our first round of community engagement where we tried to identify, were the needs accurate? Were they correctly prioritized? How do we adjust? And then we came back to the community in round two with once again kicking it off with the Library Commission and then hosting two public open houses. These public open houses were intended to show the community two design alternatives that we wanted feedback from. At that point, we got a number of feedback items on these different design alternatives that we adjusted, and we took it to the library supervisors. So we sat down with the three library supervisors for the different areas within the library and sat down what the different staffing design options were and how they fit into the broader scheme of the entire improvements of the library. And then since then, we went back to the drawing board to make sure we got it right and adjusted a number of the design elements, which I think one of the three key things that this design incorporates is the feedback that we receive from the community through this process. So after each phase of community engagement, we have adjusted the design based upon what we've heard. And then we brought it back to the Library Commission on August 7th, where the Library Commission provided some feedback and identified that we should move forward with the design to the City Council, which we provided a presentation last week. So if you watch the August 26th meeting, you're probably going to see a similar presentation to what is happening today for you all today. And then on September 15th, we are going to go to NCLA to ask for additional appropriations to move into phase two and three of this process. So round one was really focused on a validation of the needs assessment. So these are the different tiers. I won't go into each of them, but I'll give you the high level that tier one had install family restrooms, remediate inadequate wiring, remodel to support limited extended hours space, which for those of you who may not know, the library does offer open access at the Woodland Library, and this was identified as a need for the community to allow extended hours from the normal operations. So if the library is open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., this would allow limited area of the library potentially for extended hours, such as 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., something like that. And then creating an acoustic quiet zone, reconfigure and enlarge the lobby, address service desks, how they can be more adequately used, improve the friends sales space, and then consolidate staff areas to improve efficiencies. And then obviously a big overarching one is address any accessibility concerns as discovered, which, as you might imagine, based on what Chair Bedard mentioned, there obviously this building has not been remodeled since 1990, so there would be accessibility items that would be addressed as part of this process. So after that round one with the community, we brought back two design concepts that were really first drafts. They were intended to spark conversation, intended to have feedback, intended to really get into the nitty-gritty conversation with folks about what the spaces could look like. And what we heard was a desire for additional workspace from the friends from the first concept that was presented. And then people did prefer restrooms with the two family restrooms. And then meeting rooms, there was a request for clarity on the sizes of those. In community space, we did hear that people wanted a larger community space within the library that would allow them to have an area. Um, and then the main library, the big keys were acoustic separations and making sure that there was a clear delineation for extended hours spaces. So that would be identified in this new design. And so in these drafts, the overarching theme was that people did think it was much better or better. So if you look here, 61 or 51% of folks thought it was much better or better, which was option number one. And then option number two, it looks like 61% of folks thought it was better or much better. And that was before we made the adjustments that we've made now in this second phase, that the option that you're going to see today. So the design goals, as I mentioned above, I'll just touch on the ones that I didn't, which is improving access for personal charging technology, um, flexibility of space, so making sure that the library is flexible and able to be used for different purposes at different times, improve accommodations for small group gatherings. One of the big feedbacks we got was that there's nowhere for book clubs to meet. And so in this new design, we've identified some areas that book clubs of different sizes could use within the library, or meetings for different groups or organizations. And then the overarching theme, and that's why it's kind of with that dashed line around here, is considering an inclusive design. So overarching through this entire design process, the entire design of the library as you see it today, the goal is to have an inclusive design that is accessible for all individuals of all needs, ages, abilities. Every consideration was made by the architect to make sure that it was as inclusive as possible. And so holistic updates, the big ones here, I just wanted to touch on is that the architects did look at the structural integrity of the library building itself and identified that structurally the library has good bones and that it is able to be renovated through this process, through this remodel. But the big things were we need to update the mechanical and plumbing, we need to update the electrical and lighting, the telecom and AV. Accessibility is always, as I mentioned, a paramount concern and something that will be addressed through the whole process. And then the architectural and interiors. So the interiors of the library, making sure that that's holistically updated. So this is the existing floor plan of the library. This is the main entrance here at the bottom. You enter in, and then there's the orchard room, the restrooms with the lobby area, and then you enter in past the first staff desk towards the more open area, and then over here is the entrance coming from the courtyard or from the orchard from City Hall. And then over here is the children's area as well as the teen room. And then you have the majority of the circulation, which are the stacks. And then in the bottom right corner, you have the Friends workspace. So the proposed conceptual floor plan, that's before you. The children's area is not in the scope of work because as a separate project, the county is refreshing all of the children's areas throughout the district. And so that's not within the scope of work for what we're talking about today. But we are incorporating two family restrooms, updating the restrooms, and then there'll be one single stall restroom that's closed in addition to the men's and women's restroom. The Friends of the Library sale area is right here in the lobby. And then you move into this flexible community hub. I think it's a community space is the easiest way to define it, where there's going to be a glass partition or partition of some kind here that will allow this to become a more flexible space. So as you can see from the red pullout, there is the table and chairs setting or a lecture performance setting with chairs. So there's a way that this could be very modular in design to allow different purposes and different uses as you, depending on what the library needs for that given time, that given day. And then the staff work area has been consolidated here. There are two new restrooms, a new break area that's been updated, and then making sure that there's an adequate staff space for every employee. So at this point in time, the designers have worked with the library staff to ensure that there are enough seats for all the staff and that they have their own work area. And then back here is a little bit less modular area. So you have this modularity in the flexible space up front. And then you move back here. You have a number of meeting rooms, as you can see. So you have some meeting rooms here. You also have the multi-use room. Sorry, I passed that over in the main area of the library. And then some small study areas. And then back here, we have the passport office with some seating for anyone who's there for the passport office. And then the Friends of the Library workspace is roughly the same size as it is today in the corner. This would be formally built out. So there's a partition from floor to ceiling. So they can be as loud as they would like in the workspace and they can work together. And it won't impact any of this area in the farther part of the library. So these renderings, I want to really emphasize it's on the note, it's really small, but just to make sure these are not intended to show the final finishes, colors, design options. This was intentionally designed very plain with no colors, just to show kind of the rendering of what it could look like and show the eye level views of the library with this design. So this is the community hub. If you imagine you're facing out from the flexible marketplace that we're talking about towards the teen room, which is right there, as well as the stacks in the back. And so this is that partition to divide. That really important, the glass partition will allow the extended hours space. So because of that partition, you'll be able to have that front portion of the library open for the extended open access time period, while closing off the further portion of the library for those extended hours. And then this is the other side of the quiet area and collections that you can see. It shows the partition with the doorways. All of these finishes, all of the design elements are still being evaluated by the architects, and we've heard feedback from the Library Commission as well as the City Council. So as you look at this, please keep in mind these are conceptual at this point. It's more about the actual built lines on the drawings than the actual renderings themselves. And so these are the meeting rooms. If you can imagine, this is where you could have different meetings. And this meeting room actually has the flexibility that there's a door facing into the staff area as well as out to the public. So this could be where our community librarian has their staff meetings, where the library staff, if they need additional workspace in addition to the behind the scenes, could close this down for the day to do work as they need. And these meeting rooms would allow a lot of flexibility for different sized groups to meet in different capacities. So this is the fun part, the project costs and budgeting. When you look at a project, there's roughly 70% is hard costs, which is really the going out to bid award for the construction materials. That's for the labor, that's for everything that's built into the construction. And then there's some soft costs. And so these soft costs are adjusting depending on what finishes you choose, what furniture, audio visual items, different things like that. And so, what the consultants have done to this point with the conceptual design is created a rough hard cost budget, just to give us an idea of what the hard costs are going to be. And so at this point in time, they estimate that it's going to be about 8.8 million for the conceptual design and hard costs. So this is that number we're running with. Obviously, this number will become more refined as the design continues to become more refined. So when we know exactly where each of these lines are going to go, what the cost to do each of the items from the design drawings, we'll know, as that dollar becomes more sharp and the pencils become more sharp. But this is a breakdown showing that a lot of the dollars is going towards bringing the library up to code in a lot of ways. So the mechanical, electrical, accessibility, AV, and then obviously the architectural and interior finishes to make sure that all of these new features are incorporated. So next steps. At this point in time, we just went to City Council. City Council authorized us to go forward to NCLA for appropriations for funding. So I'm working on finalizing that presentation. We'll be giving that to NCLA in the coming weeks. And once we present to NCLA, we would return back to City Council for a contract amendment for this process. And then we would go forth to continue to execute on phases 2 and 3, which would be further design documents, so the schematic design, design development, and then ultimately we'd end up with construction documents. So for this next phase, the end or next phases, the end goal is to have construction bid ready documents and then have the assistance as we move through to plan check and permitting. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. That was my presentation.
Pierre and Anthony, thank you very much for the very informative presentation. I have some questions, and then after that, I'll open it up to the audience. When will the in your, Anthony, in your opinion, when will the improvements begin, and approximately when are they expected to complete?
So I think at this point in time, we anticipate that construction, if all goes right, could begin end of next year, end of 26, early 27. Obviously, that depends on the timing for the project, and how we move forward with that. I do believe that I'll pull up the dates. They roughly think that it's going to take about 15 months from start to completion for the project, if we do a single phase construction, which at this point in time, it's looking like a single phase construction would make the most sense both economically because of the cost to do a phased construction, and then also logistically, if you were to shut down different portions of the library, how would you make sure the library functions in its full capacity?
Thank you. Will the library still be accessible while the improvements are being made?
I intentionally teed up for this one based on my last answer, but at this point in time, we are exploring single phase construction. I think we would obviously work with the county library district to make sure that the programs and services and books themselves would be available to the community. It's important to note that we do have two libraries in Los Altos. We have the main library in Woodland, so Woodland would be able to stay open. And then obviously we are working with county library staff at the direction of City Council to make sure that we evaluate all options during the closure of the library.
Great, thanks. Is it correct to assume that the library interior improvements mean Los Altos won't be getting a new library anytime soon?
When the ad hoc subcommittee presented to City Council, it was discussed what it would take, both the cost and how it would work for a rebuild versus a remodel. And it was determined at that time we should explore the remodel option, which is what we're exploring now. And hopefully, with all of the design elements, the accessibility, the inclusive design that we're looking at for the library, we could make sure that this library that we have today would be able to last a number of years moving forward.
Great. Do you think tagging on to that, do you think a new library will eventually be needed after this, after these improvements are made?
I think a new library may be necessary at some point. I think what we've heard from the architect shows that we do have good bones with the library that we have today. We just need to make sure that it's up to code and we can make sure that it's up to date for libraries in 2025 in the future.
Thanks. Pierre and Anthony, thank you so much for the great presentation and insights. I'd like to now open it up to the attendees for questions. Please raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you one by one. And remember, please, one question per person and no speeches, please. Looking for hands. Ah, Jamie, unmute.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering, there's a electrification cost there. It's called out about 500, as 498,000, I think, in the rebuild costs.
Yes, so we are exploring electrification of the library through this process. We are working to refine what exactly that entails, but it does include electrification of existing gas resources in the library.
Yeah, so that the cost, I think the consultant pointed out that there would be basically the 498 would be basically paying PG&E so we could use more electricity.
So the electrification hard cost would be a number of things. It would be equipment, it would be updating panels, it would be running new lines as needed. So there's a number of items in that $500,000, but it's not just paying PG&E.
Okay, so I didn't see anything called out for additional solar panels, not electrical panels. It seems like all the schools in this district have massive amounts of solar panels. Every middle school, every high school, every elementary school, every community college has thousands of panels. The community center has panels. I'm not sure why we want to spend $500,000 to pay PG&E so they can overcharge us again. It seems like the part of the electrification details aren't articulated here, but it seems like part of that expense should be putting up panels in the parking lot. We've got a big parking lot at the community center. I'm not, from what I heard at the previous library commission meeting, we're just going to pay PG&E $500,000 to increase the bandwidth so they can give us more power. It seems like we should be exploring putting up panels and not paying them anything.
So one of the feedback we received from the city council when this was presented was that city council wanted us to look at solar panels. So you're
Okay.
teeing up a conversation that we're going to have, I think, separately from this process, but we are looking at solar panels as part of this project or in tandem with this project, in addition to the interior improvements we're talking about. So
Yeah,
solar panels are being evaluated in this project.
okay, great. I'm sorry to ask a redundant question. The article in the Town Crier about the city council meeting talked only about bathrooms. So there wasn't anything about the electrification part of that. Thanks for your answer.
Thank you. Janine. Unmute, please.
Great, thank you. Yes, I got it. Thank you. Sorry. Um, Clarification on the facility being closed during the single phase construction, which I think is a smart move. What about the children's space? Will it be closed to the public as well? And this is a kind of a double-sided question, given that understanding that the children's play space is upcoming, how does that match in with this construction?
I would imagine, I can't say for certain because I think the architects would know more, but I believe the library would probably be closed during the single phase construction, including the children's area, largely because of the restrooms. So, because we are working on restrooms and electricity, we probably would not be having power in the building and wouldn't have restrooms. So, it would probably render the children's area inadequate for programming. But this is actually during the construction on the children's area right now is a good test run on how we can make sure programs and services operate. So last night at the Library Commission meeting, the community librarian mentioned that they're holding programs and services in the community center while the children's area is closed. And we look to partner with them moving forward and doing similar things during construction on the whole library.
And then the children's play space, that will happen before construction begins in, right?
The construction for the children's area just started and it should be completed in November, I believe.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jim Fenton.
Thanks. At the time the library was built, of course, we didn't have the beautiful community center that we have now. So how does in terms of planning for study spaces and community spaces and all of that, how was the community center factored into the decision in terms of capacity there and so forth?
So we went out to the public as mentioned in a number of engagement events and presented the different design options. And what we did here is that people wanted spaces to gather, small spaces to gather for their book clubs, for studying, for different things. And I think people recognize that the community center does provide a community gathering space. But the library can also be a community hub as well. And there's no reason that the library shouldn't be a community gathering area, especially in that main area in front of the glass that could adjust for larger events that would allow the library to become an event hub for, I think, meet the author talks, children's story time. There's a lot of flexibility with the new design that would allow different events there.
Thank you.
Hi, can I just add to that real quick?
Sure.
Anthony,
Please chime in.
I think that the fact that the community center is so used proves out the need in the library and the different use of what I'll call civic community space is very important to provide to the community. So that was definitely factored in. The two go hand in hand.
I'm looking for more hands up. Any other questions? Liz Nyberg.
Right. I'm sorry, I couldn't find my digital hand. I thought that one of the goals was to increase the space of the orchard room, but I don't see that it's being enlarged. And no mention was made of the outdoor new courtyard space that's going to happen at some point. And how does that actually connect to the orchard room? Because I thought it was to provide more kind of orchard room events in that outdoor space.
So the orchard room itself, and if I don't want to necessarily share my screen again to pull it up, but the orchard room is really configured in a way that wouldn't allow us to expand or adjust into the main library, largely because it's right next to the restrooms. And then it's, to the side, and then above it is the children's area. What we did instead is created an additional area that could be flexible for that community space in that main area of the library. And then the note about the courtyard, the architects did connect with the designers for the courtyard to understand what that's going to look like. And then also make sure that what they're doing will be able to incorporate into that design, as far as making sure that nothing done on the interior will impact the exterior project that's being done. The intentionality of all the seating across the top portion of the library, the northern portion of it, is intended so people can look out into the courtyard and then into the orchard area and enjoy the beautiful views from the library itself out into the community area of the Civic Center.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Liz, yes.
Well, a different question.
Let me switch back to, we had another hand up and then I'll switch back to you.
Sorry, sure.
Okay, no problem. Janine.
My hand should have been lowered. That's my bad.
Oh, okay. Liz.
Sometimes the digital is difficult. Somewhat related to this discussion, Anthony. What's happening with the youth center construction? When will that be finished? And will the library not start any construction until the youth center stuff is done?
So the youth center construction is completed. So it's done. The construction's over, so it won't impact this in any way moving forward.
I didn't know it was finished. I heard a lot of noise from there the other day.
They're doing the finishing touches. We'll put it that way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question?
I do want to, if there's no questions, I'm always
I have a
happy
question I have a question if you have time.
I was just going to say I'm happy to chat individually if people have questions, and I'm always available if people want to reach out and ask questions. But I'm happy to answer the questions you need.
It's more about farther out. How is, given the new community hub, and then the augmentation of the, meeting space, all the cool new features that are going to happen. At what point does programming of the new library commence? I would hope that the planning would start before the construction is completed, but maybe I'm wrong. So can you comment on that?
Programming's been integrated in this conversation from the start. So we've intentionally included the county library staff to provide feedback on programming. In addition, the architects do design libraries across the Bay Area and I think across the state. So programming has been a big consideration, as you can tell by the proposed flexibility of the spaces and the descriptions of what they could be used for. But obviously, as we get into, I think, furniture selection, how we design desks, how we design seating, how we design where the actual books on the wall go, that will be important considerations for programming, and we'll work with the county library staff to make sure it's integrated.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anybody else? And before we close, just Pierre and Anthony, anything else you'd like to add?
Just for me, these are very exciting times. I don't think we've gone this far on doing something with the main library. I've been involved in it almost 10 years now, as many of the people on this call have, certainly Freddie. And to see everything fall into place, be it the children's remodel, the courtyard, what's going on at Woodland, the progress on this, all towards the service of the public is pretty exciting for me. And I hope for everybody else too. And the city and the county have been very cooperative, have been extremely, it's a complex situation because the building's owned by the city, but all the folks are county. You really have to cooperate and trust amongst everybody to make sure something like this is, goes off well. And I commend Anthony for his coordination and the city for stepping up on the project management side, because there's a lot of the costs here are hidden in the good work of these people. So I just wanted to bring that up as we close. It's pretty exciting.
And I just want to echo that and thank everybody for their feedback today and through this process. And I really want to emphasize that this was a very active community engagement project. So it wasn't just working in a silo, as we talked about, going out to the community as much as we can to talk about this project. And I mentioned it last night at the Library Commission meeting, but we've had a couple commission meetings with 40 to 50 people for the Library Commission, which is really exciting to see the engagement from the community on this project. And we're excited to keep moving forward and continue to hopefully remodel the library in a meaningful and thoughtful way that will improve programs and services for the community and for Los Altos as a whole.
I just speaking for myself and not as the moderator, I didn't have a question, but I just want to add here that it's just so impressive to see the collaborations between the different entities, and this is a great example of where people coming from different places can work together really well, and that the community, this is such a wonderful asset for our community, and it's just great to uh, for the community engagement you've already raised and the way you're managing the project, Anthony, and that the city and the library commission are moving along with with its associated entity is just very impressive, and thanks very much for that. And to close, thank you both for the great presentation and all the attendees for the great questions. Our next meeting will be Friday, September 19th from 8:30 to 9:30. Please join us for a discussion entitled Reflections with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. It should be a great discussion. Please support Los Altos Community Coalition by going to our YouTube channel, clicking on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. A link to our YouTube channels is posted in the chat for your convenience. If you'd like to be added to the LACC mailing list, please send an email to info@losaltoscommunitycoalition.org. This email is posted in the chat for your convenience as well. LACC is the program of Los Altos Forward, a project of the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation's Local Impact Collective. LAMVCF is a sustaining sponsor of Los Altos Forward, and we thank them very much for that. Thanks once again, Pierre and Anthony, for a great discussion today, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody on September 19th.